Hi, I'm Rob Cosman. Welcome to my shop. Today we're going to go to work on that drawer bottom, and I'm going to introduce you to a new tool. That's the skew block plane. I'm also going to show you why it's so important, I think, to have more than one marking gauge. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this. By the way, if you like what you see, don't forget to like and share it. Also, you subscribe, buttons down there, and hit that bell so you'll be notified every time we release a new video. Stay tuned. I'm Rob Cosman, and welcome to my shop. Yeah, just before we get started on the drawer, I found another piece of furniture for you to see. So this was the first time that I used my wood hinge on a piece of furniture. And this, I actually built this back in 1988. This is one wide piece of cherry that I found up in the rafters at BYU. And I don't know if you can tell it anymore, but it starts here and it wraps all the way around. The lid is a piece of fiddleback ash, and my kids have tried to destroy this numerous times, so I've had to refinish it, and the veneer is getting really thin on the lid. So what I did is took a piece of MDF. You can see right. Oh, I did miter it. I thought I didn't. Anyway, so there's a piece of ash, probably 3/4 of an inch wide, so 3/4 by 3/4 that's banded all the way around. So you take the piece of MDF, you glue that piece of solid ash on all four sides, and then you veneer ash on the top and on the bottom to stabilize it. Okay. The bottom part is just typical dovetails. However, when I originally did this, everything was left proud, so the dovetails actually stuck out and chamfered all the way around all four sides, as you can see down here. This is actually the bottom. And I'll get to that in a second. But what happened is after the kids had marked it all up in order to refinish it, when the dovetails are proud, you can't finish around them. It's impossible. So I just had to flush everything off. The handles, the recess, this is the first time I carved everything. I just used a gouge to carve that out so you could get your hand underneath. There's one on each side, and there's one right here as a means of opening it up. Now on the bottom, this solid cherry bottom, and then I put a piece of cove on both sides, again, just to make it easier to clean, and it needs to be. But to help, well, not this, actually it was more of a decorative feature than anything else, but to keep all of your expansion equal from center, I put 2 through tenons here. They're not glued, they're just in position, so as this expands, everything goes equal distance of center. So that's a solid bottom sitting in a groove on 4 sides. Now the lid is, the hinge is a 3/4 inch wooden hinge. And I don't know why I did this either, but instead of all cherry or all ash, I made it look like this is part of this, and this is part of that, so it's a alternate, obviously. And that has a 1/8 inch. So you remember that jig that I showed you? This one is the 3/4 inch cup with the 1 inch pin, and then the lid stays are just easy to make. I actually had to replace them. They eventually broke, but they're a piece of hardwood. There's a dowel down here in the bottom, and there's a dowel up in here, and there's just enough. It manages to keep itself straight. But if you didn't do that, the lid's a little bit heavy, and it goes back, and I don't want the hinge getting ripped off. I don't think there's anything to see in the bottom. I haven't looked. Who knows what's under there? And I like this idea of having the lid drop down in either end. I just think it's a nice way to finish it off. And I did the same thing here, just to elevate it, just to keep it up off of the ground. Again, just a design feature. But the fiddleback ash is a beautiful piece of wood, veneer, I should say. I have quite a bit of it. I still have some left. Anyway, that has survived the years. All right, so on to the bottom. Still got a little bit of final fitting to do on this. However, I want to put the bottom in first because sometimes that alters the way it goes in there, and I can't for the life of me figure out why. So let's take that out. Now, we need to measure from the bottom of the groove on one side to the bottom of the groove on the other to get our length I'll cut it close on the table saw, but then I will trim it to final dimension with the shooting board. Okay, so that says 14 1/4. So the grain is always going to run this way, so that all of the expansion is going to go out the back. If you ran the grain like this, pardon me, like this, yeah, if you ran the grain, sorry, this is throwing me off, even though it's done right. If you ran the grain like that, as it expands, it would push the sides out, and you'd bind it in the drawer, and you'd never get it open. So you always have your grain running side to side. Ideally, you want to glue the front into the groove. And if you can imagine, if the bottom of this, or the edge of this solid bottom and the edge of this solid bottom, were to literally be touching the bottoms of the grooves. Oh, who's that?
McLaren.
And that's it. Once this is glued in place and held fast, if it's sitting in the bottom of the groove there and it's sitting in the bottom of the groove here, it cannot rack. It literally cannot rack, which is an ideal way of making everything just perfect. And I've always told folks, when you do things like that, you can get away with really thin drawer sides that make the drawer nice and light, but super strong. Think about the way airplanes used to be built, made out of wood. Just a little bit of engineering, and you can take a relatively light material and make something extremely rugged. So 14 1/4. I'm going to check that just because I don't want to screw it up. That is 14 1/4. And for length, we're at 17, and I'll go 17 3/16. And that's actually width. This is length. Okay, then now I've already cut a rabbit all the way around this, and I don't know why I did that. That's really close to being sized. I've got to go in. I've already done that too. I must have prepared the two of these at the same time, but this could be planed a little bit more just to get rid of some of these marks and blow the dust off. And by the way, this is a piece of aspen. I didn't want the expense of making this out of holly. All right, let's take this. I should check first to see if this is square. We have a visitor. You want to catch him on camera? Mm-hmm. What's up there? This is my grandson. Stick his head in. Let him say hello. This is my grandson. McLaren, thank you. I got a few. Mm-hmm. See you, Mac. 22 3/8. 22 3/8. So that's nice and square. So we've got the groove already started on here, so that'll be the front. So now I just got to take this over and trim it. No, 17 3/16. That's already at 17 3/16. This is going to be easy.
Remember the length?
The length is off. 14 3/8. 14 1/4. I'm going to run over and measure that one more time because odd that it would be right in every other direction except that one. Oh, it is 14 1/4. So rather than do both sides, I'm just going to trim one, and I don't have so much to do. This one's kind of chewed up. 14 1/4. I'm going to stay away from it by a 32nd. If you're interested in a shop tour, let me know in the comment section, and we'll plan to do that. Of course, we have to do some cleaning. But I've had somebody ask, I don't remember when, but if enough of you are and you haven't already seen it, actually we're changing it all the time, so nobody has seen the most current version. Okay, I'm going to stick with that same rabbit that's already there, so that means just taking my marking gauge. Resetting it off of the one that's there. Now I'll just make a note about this. Rather than try to get it exact, I'd rather leave a little extra so it's noticeable. You try to get it exact, it's just one more thing that doesn't really make a whole lot of a difference, but it just complicates the process. So leave it so that it's actually a noticeable, you almost call it a feature. So I'll cut this shoulder, and these cutters are sharp enough and this wood is mild enough that I should be able to cut right down to that depth. Okay, now before I go any further, and you don't need to worry about that. There's one fallacy of a lot of people seem to believe about wood, and that is that you can't prevent it from cupping. It's easy to prevent it from cupping. What you can't do is prevent it from expanding or contracting. So we can make that wood flat quite easy, and sitting in a groove that will keep that nice and flat and not a problem. But the expansion has to be paid attention to. Now, first thing I'll do, I better check too, just make sure. It is going to complicate it and getting it in there, but we have to live with that. Okay, I've got lots of room. So we'll go in and clean this up first. I'm going to plane this. It'll be a lot easier to do it this way, but that's not going to stay put. However, what I can do is clamp a piece out there. All I'm going to do is just have these keep it in line. I need to put a thinner piece of wood out along here that I can, yeah, but I need the full length. Maybe a piece of this cherry will do. Yeah, it's got to be wider than that because I don't want to be near the clamps. Okay, give me a second, I find something appropriate. Alright, I just got a piece of crappy, actually I should turn it the other way so it'll lay flat. Just a piece of I think it was a covering off that came on several sheets of plywood I bought. Just use it for things, stuff like this. It'll keep it down. I can just plane against that. It's easier trying to reach out there with the plane. The grain changes direction a lot. So,
dog sticking.
huh? I just push that flat with the plane. Like I said, this has already been done. I'm just going in, freshening it up. So if you haven't been convinced that a hand plane is so much better than sanding, you're either stubborn or you haven't been paying attention. No dust. Okay, now I got a few plane tracks.
I noticed there was no feathering on that left edge.
And if you're wondering why I pick the shaving out each time, it's because if I don't, it often gets stuck to the bottom of the plane, and then I have to stop and peel it off. And right here. Went too far. Advance that blade just a little bit. Almost seems loose. A little more blade. It actually feels pretty good, although there's one right there. I'm just seeing a little bit of shaving come through. That's it. Okay. Now, we should do the other side too. Now this doesn't affect the thickness because this is the thickness around here. This is just going to be purely looks. What are we going to do to keep that in place? No, I can clamp this one now. Huh?
Yeah. Don't go too tight.
Erica here?
She wins.
I hate to say it, but this wood is almost a weed. If you were to see where it grows or how it grows, it's usually the first tree to spring up after a clear cutting. It grows to a mature tree or a harvestable tree in 20 years from seedling. And it's the downside, it's a little bit stringy. And it's really soft. I can easily take my thumbnail and carve my initials into that. Now, I don't want too much blade because it tears easily. And what I'm doing here is just catching the tops. There's a lot of snipe from the thickness planer, and I'm just kind of hitting the tops. And that's not a dent, it's just a, that's what you might call it, a blister. Okay, I'll keep going with a heavy cut until you get a continuous shaving. There's still an area right here where there's snipe. You might not be able to see it, but you can hear it. I just feel for the overlap, so I have a rough idea where my plane needs to go. Okay, now pull that in. It's a little heavy on the right. Push the lateral adjustment lever. Don't push your lateral adjustment lever, it's more like squeezing. So index finger here on the blade, thumb on the lateral adjustment lever, and just pinch it. And you can get a lot more, a much more precise adjustment that way than just taking this and trying to push it. You really don't have anything to support your finger. I'm playing with this adjuster knob underneath just to pull that blade out enough so that I can get rid of the overlap marks. Alright, start over. That's a good pass. Smooth. Look at that little jump it made. Now, this is the bottom side of the drawer. And you say, why are you spending that much time on the bottom side of the drawer? Well, Alan Peters, if you looked at a piece of his furniture, you could take it apart and you wouldn't find tool marks on surfaces that were inside of a joint. So you gotta care about this. You just have to go the extra mile. Satisfy yourself. Okay, so now the next move is to cut this, or shoot that to width, and then we'll go in and cut the rabbet to fit the groove. How are we for time, Jake?
We're at 23.
All right, we're good. We'll go to 30 anyway. I can't get that on my regular shooting board. Now I'm just going to trap this so that it doesn't move. That was a little cleaner. Oh, you know that is almost.
Are you gonna finish cutting that rabbit?
Huh? Yeah, but I want to take this down to size first. I thought I gave myself lots of extra room there, but I didn't. That's almost there. I'm not going to touch this at all. I'm just going to go ahead and cut the rabbit. I thought I may have to come back and take a pass, but I don't want to do it now because it's that close to fitting. Yeah, I got lucky. Okay, so this is flimsy, and that's why I'm kind of trying to figure out how best to deal with it. If we put it in here, and let the vise pull it straight, or clamp it straight. Now,
Wait, are you putting the right side in?
I have to because of the way it's cupped, otherwise that part wouldn't. So
What do you mean?
what I'm going to do is use my use my mortise gauge on that. No, I'm going to use my marking gauge, and I need to measure the width of this groove. Now, how am I going to do that?
Use your combination square, and then you can set your marking gauge off of your combination square.
How you figure I'm going to do that?
With your combination square.
Yeah, how am I going to measure the width of that groove?
Oh,
With a combination square.
The width.
Well, all I can do is experiment. I don't think it's more than 3/16. Actually, it isn't. I was going to say I could use a 3/16 chisel. Well, you know what? I'll take it down this far first. Okay. Shut down for just a second. I got to think about this. Okay, I've got to go all the way around. I'm going to use my skew block plane to do this. I just want to tell you why I'm working from this side, because this is the one side that's going to go in the groove, and I'm creating the other. If I referenced off of this side, it would make sense that it would give you a nice straight wall, but the problem is that from hand planing, this may not be the same thickness as it is down here. But the skew block plane is easy to use, and it's the best plane for giving you a smooth cut when you're cutting across the grain.
So then, wouldn't it be better to just make one slice that you can then come down to with the skew block plane?
Yeah, I'm just going to make it a little heavier so I can.
I know the heavier cut is giving you that rounded.
Well, that's giving me a little bevel, make it easier to slide in the. That's I got to take off more than that. Remember, that's wider than the groove is wider than that setting I've got. Now, if you're not familiar with a skew block plane, I prefer the Lee-Nielsen version. And when Tom developed this plane, he added something that Stanley didn't have on the original, which was a fence. Now, it comes with the metal portion. We actually make these wooden ones, but when you remove the side plate, I'll show you what that looks like.
There's one right by the sandflex box.
So when you buy it, it comes like this. Has these.
That's it.
Oh, it is the wrong one. Well, whatever. Same thing. Take that off, and it exposes the blade. So now you can work up against the vertical surface. The blade is on an angle, so as you're pushing it through the wood, it pulls the tool this way, which is nice because it keeps it tight to the fence. And it also severs the fibers across the grain much cleaner. Not a guarantee, but best chance. What Lee-Nielsen added was this. So if you look at an original 140, did I buy one?
Mm-hmm. No, you
I was going to. Yeah. Didn't have the fence on there. And it was used the same way, it just wasn't as nearly as convenient. Putting this on really made it the tool that it is. I consider that to be the best joinery plane there is. And you have to add that to your arsenal if you're going to do, especially if you're going to do all hand tools. Now what I want is just something that clamps down and hold it in place. How are we going to do this?
Won't that pull it down? Did you clamp that
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
vise?
yeah, yeah. Come on.
Go to the next one.
Oh, I guess it will. So these bench dogs are canted at about 3 degrees. So the ones on this side slant 3 degrees this way. The ones on the dog, on the movable dog, slant 3 degrees that way. So when you clamp in, and it'll always open up a little bit like that, but not if you had them plumb. As soon as you clamp it, they're going to flex a little bit like that, and your board pops up. So you want to keep them down like that. And then when you pound on it, it brings it down nice and tight. Didn't do anything in the middle, but let's stick it up. That's good. Okay. I always keep mine set up with the blade sticking just out beyond the edge. They now make them with a nicker here. And the nicker is used to score the wood fiber ahead of the blade. If you use that to go across the wood, it's not going to leave you a nice clean line. So I always work to a marking gauge line like I did right here. Or you can buy the one, the new version now has a nicker. The problem is you got to make sure that your blade is perfectly lined up with the nicker, which is not that big of a deal. I just got used to using this one. Now, a little extra eye. So I've got that parallel to the sole. By sighting down there you can see it. I'm going to adjust the fence so that the point of the blade is cutting right on that line. If anything, it's this side of it. Certainly don't want to go past it, because if you do, you'll lose your nice clean shoulder. Now, the only downside to this is, and we're working on such small surfaces, there's no reference for where level is, so you just kind of have to get a feel for it. There's not enough material here really to ride on the fence and tell you that either. Might not be the tool for you if you're always in a hurry. This is going to take multiple passes. After I get into it a ways, I'll get down there and eyeball it and see if I've been leaning one way or the other. Now, why did that leave? Shoot. Something happened here. It went past my line. And I've got that all torn up. All right, let's modify this a little. Check my depth of my groove first. All right, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger just so I can fix that. What I'll do is I'll take a second marking gauge. This is the reason why you want more than one marking gauge. I don't want to change that cutter until I'm done with it. But what I've got to do now is come in here and cut beyond that torn up stuff. Okay, now I gotta go back with my skew block plane and reset the fence. And rather than try to deal with that little bit, which is going to be difficult, I think I'll bring my chisel in and just remove that material. It wasn't hard to cut that depth with the marking gauge. Didn't quite get deep enough in some of the areas, but I can go back and fix it. This is where a 1-inch chisel comes in handy. You got to get out of the habit, or try to break the habit of brushing the surface clean with your hand, like I'm doing right now, on blonde woods. If you don't, you'll end up with fingerprints or dirty marks all over it. Good reason to have a bench brush. That's something we don't carry, Jake.
Mm-hmm.
We should see if we can find a good one. I'm going to go in and make that a little bit deeper. Check and see where we are. Oh, I got a lot of material to remove. One more quick check on this to make sure I'm not going beyond that gauge line. Now, nice thing about the fence, and the reason why I added on, before I engage, I got lots of reference to keep the plane going in the same line. And then when you get down here, now I'm kind of twisting this way so that I can use the fence behind the blade to keep it going in the same line, so you don't end up swinging around like that, which is may have been what happened. I wasn't paying attention. Now, if you look at this, I'm getting a really clean cut. In fact, it's a lovely clean cut right up to here, and then the grain just does something funny, and that's why you end up with that surface. Now, you could cure that by having they make both a right skew and a left skew. If you're right-handed, you tend to want the right skew. You're left-handed, obviously the left skew. The only time you may want the opposite is in a grain direction issue, but do I really want to go out and get another plane just to do 3 inches? No, that's going to sit, that's going to be hidden in the groove anyway. And when I get close, I can pull the blade in, and there's a good chance that that'll go away. Okay, I'm down to the line there. I don't know why I'm so lopsided, but I'm heavy back here. So I'm looking at this end and seeing, okay, am I keeping that, this wall or that flat surface needs to remain parallel to the one underneath. And so far it looks good. So I'm only going to go part way. Time, Jake?
39.
39, really? Guess we gave a little bit of overtime. All right. If you've got some ideas on how you think this could have been done better, I don't mind hearing it. Put it in the comment section. We're going to drag this series out at least 2 more days. What was your guess? 3? I thought maybe 2, possibly even 1. I'm almost, you can see right here, if you look real quick, you can see the bevel from the marking gauge. So that kind of tells you when you're there. I've got I'm not quite at it here. You can see it there, then nothing here. So I've got a little bit more to remove. I will, what I'll probably do is take this out, try it on the groove, and play with this one until I get the thickness just right. And then I'll rescribe the other two sides until we get it just where we want it. And then getting that to fit in there is a little bit of a, I wouldn't say there's a trick to it, but it takes some patience because you're trying to get almost zero clearance. And there's a lot of friction as you're trying to put that in there. You don't want it sloppy. You don't want it sloppy lengthwise, don't want it sloppy thickness-wise. So it takes a little bit of work. So we will do that when we come back tomorrow. I hope to see you back here then. Hi, I'm RobCosman. Welcome to my shop. Today we are going to work on the bottom of this drawer. Takes a fair bit of work. Now, if you like this, subscribe, hit the bell that notifies you when it's ready, and tell your friends. In other words, give us a like, give us a share. Stay tuned. Yeah. What am I? Hi, I'm RobCosman. Welcome to my shop. Today we're going to go to work on that drawer bottom, and I'm going to introduce you to skew block. Hi, I'm RobCosman. Welcome to my shop. Today we're going to go to work on that drawer bottom. I'm going to introduce you.
Somebody's calling you again.